The year was 1837, and Queen Victoria had just taken the throne of the British Empire, ushering in an era of moral extremism so intense that it would make modern cancel culture look like a casual disagreement. What you're about to hear is the shocking truth about Victorian society's obsession with female modesty, where showing a bare ankle in public could literally result in arrest, imprisonment, and in some cases execution for crimes against public morality. This wasn't just about fashion or social etiquette. This was a systematic campaign to control every aspect of women's bodies and behavior, backed by laws so draconian that they turned ordinary clothing choices into potential death sentences. The Victorian ankle obsession reveals a level of social control so extreme that it influenced everything from architecture to medicine to international diplomacy. Picture London in 1840, the world's most powerful city, center of an empire that spanned the globe. But beneath the veneer of civilization and progress lurked a society so sexually repressed and morally rigid that it bordered on mass psychosis. The sight of a woman's bare ankle had become so charged with erotic significance that it could incite riots, destroy reputations, and bring down entire families. The ankle hysteria didn't emerge overnight. It was the culmination of decades of increasing moral panic about female sexuality. The Industrial Revolution had created new opportunities for women to work outside the home, to earn their own money, and to move through public spaces with unprecedented freedom. This terrified the male establishment, who responded by creating increasingly bizarre restrictions on women's appearance and behavior. The legal framework for ankle enforcement was embedded in Britain's public morality laws. Under the Vagrancy Act and various local ordinances, any woman whose dress revealed her ankles could be charged with indecent exposure, disturbing the peace, or corrupting public morals. These weren't minor infractions. They were serious criminal charges that could result in imprisonment, deportation to Australia, or in extreme cases, execution. But the most shocking aspect of the ankle laws wasn't their existence. It was how enthusiastically they were enforced. Special police units were created specifically to patrol public spaces, looking for improperly dressed women. These morality officers had the power to arrest women on the spot, conduct public examinations of their clothing, and even perform forced medical examinations to determine if ankle exposure had caused moral contamination. The enforcement was particularly brutal for working-class women, who often couldn't afford the elaborate long dresses required to completely conceal their feet. Factory workers, servants, and street vendors found themselves caught between economic necessity and legal requirements. Many were arrested repeatedly for ankle infractions, creating a cycle of imprisonment and poverty that destroyed entire families. One documented case from 1843 involved a young seamstress named Mary Fletcher, who was arrested for allowing her ankle to show while climbing the steps of St. Paul's Cathedral. The arresting officer claimed that her exposed ankle had caused a disturbance among the gentlemen present. Mary was sentenced to 6 months in Newgate Prison, where she died of typhus before her release. Her crime, wearing a dress that was 3 inches too short. The medical establishment enthusiastically supported the ankle laws. Victorian doctors claimed that viewing female ankles could cause everything from insanity to physical illness in men. They developed elaborate theories about how ankle exposure triggered nervous disorders, moral degeneracy, and even criminal tendencies in male observers. These weren't fringe opinions, they were mainstream medical doctrine taught in universities and published in respected journals. Dr. William Acton, one of the era's most influential medical authorities, wrote extensively about the dangers of ankle exposure. He claimed that men who viewed uncovered female ankles experienced a form of temporary madness that could lead to assault, robbery, or worse. His recommendations included mandatory ankle coverings for all women in public, supervised female exercise to prevent accidental exposure, and even surgical modification of women's feet to make them less provocative. The ankle obsession extended far beyond simple clothing regulations. Victorian architecture was literally redesigned to prevent accidental ankle sightings. Staircases were built with higher risers to make it impossible for women's skirts to lift. Public seating was arranged so that women's feet would always be hidden. Even church pews were modified with special panels to ensure that female ankles remained concealed during religious services. The fashion industry was completely transformed by ankle anxiety. Dress designers developed increasingly elaborate systems of weights, padding, and structural supports to ensure that women's skirts would never rise high enough to reveal their feet. Some dresses included actual metal frameworks that made normal movement nearly impossible. The goal wasn't just modesty, it was the complete elimination of any possibility of ankle exposure. But perhaps the most disturbing aspect of Victorian ankle laws was how they were internalized by women themselves. Many genuinely believed that showing their ankles was morally wrong, that it made them responsible for any inappropriate male behavior that resulted. They would go to extraordinary lengths to keep their feet covered, even in situations where concealment was dangerous or impossible. Women began binding their feet with cloth strips, similar to Chinese foot binding but focused on concealment rather than size reduction. They would wear multiple layers of stockings and undergarments, even in summer heat. Some women literally never removed their foot coverings, even in private, because they had been taught that bare ankles were inherently shameful. The psychological impact was devastating. Victorian women developed what modern psychologists would recognize as severe body dysmorphia, focused specifically on their feet and ankles. They became obsessed with hiding parts of their bodies that in previous eras had been considered completely normal. Many women reported feeling physically ill at the thought of anyone seeing their uncovered feet. The international implications of Britain's ankle obsession were equally bizarre. British diplomats would refuse to meet with representatives from cultures where women's feet weren't completely covered. Trade agreements included specific clauses about the appropriate dress of female servants and family members. The British Empire literally tried to export its ankle anxiety to every corner of the world. Colonial administrators implemented ankle laws in India, Africa, and other territories, often with violent results. Indigenous women who had never covered their feet found themselves criminalized for following traditional dress. Thousands were imprisoned, or worse, for violations of laws they didn't understand. The ankle obsession became a tool of cultural imperialism that destroyed traditional ways of life across the globe. The enforcement mechanisms became increasingly sophisticated. Police departments developed detailed guidelines for measuring appropriate skirt lengths. Special rulers were created for checking ankle coverage. Some jurisdictions required women to submit to regular modesty inspections to ensure compliance with ankle laws. The bureaucracy of ankle control grew into a massive government operation. Court records from the period reveal the insane lengths to which ankle enforcement was taken. Women were arrested for allowing their ankles to show while stepping over puddles, while climbing into carriages, even while fleeing from fires. The law made no exceptions for emergency situations, practical necessity, or basic human dignity. One particularly notorious case involved Lady Catherine Pembroke, a member of the nobility who was charged with gross indecency after her ankle was briefly visible during a fall from her horse. Despite her social status, she faced serious criminal charges and public humiliation. The case divided Victorian society, with some supporting the law's equal application and others arguing that aristocratic women should be exempt from ankle regulations. The economic impact of ankle laws was staggering. The fashion industry became completely focused on ankle concealment, with enormous resources devoted to developing new hiding techniques. Textile manufacturers specialized in producing ever heavier fabrics for women's skirts. The cost of maintaining legal compliance with ankle laws could consume a significant portion of a family's income. Working women faced impossible choices between economic survival and legal compliance. Many jobs required physical activity that made ankle concealment difficult or dangerous. But taking such jobs meant risking arrest and imprisonment. Some women were forced into prostitution simply because it was the only work that allowed them to afford the elaborate clothing required for legal respectability. The religious dimension of ankle obsession was equally extreme. Sermons regularly focused on the moral dangers of exposed ankles. Religious authorities claimed that ankle viewing was equivalent to adultery. Some denominations developed specific rituals for purifying men who had accidentally seen women's feet. The ankle had become a religious obsession that consumed countless hours of spiritual energy. Church architecture was modified to eliminate any possibility of ankle sightings during services. Special confession procedures were developed for dealing with accidental ankle exposure. Some religious communities required women to wear additional layers of covering during worship. The fear of ankles had literally reshaped Christianity in Britain and its colonies. The scientific establishment contributed to the madness with elaborate studies of ankle impact on male behavior. Researchers conducted experiments exposing men to images of female ankles and measuring their physiological responses. These studies were used to justify increasingly strict laws, with claims that ankle viewing caused measurable increases in criminal activity and social disorder. Medical journals published detailed anatomical studies of female ankles, analyzing which aspects were most dangerous to male observers. Some doctors recommended surgical procedures to make women's ankles less stimulating. The medicalization of ankle anxiety turned what should have been a simple matter of personal choice into a complex health issue requiring professional intervention. The decline of ankle laws came slowly, beginning in the 1880s as younger generations began questioning the absurdity of criminalizing body parts. The growth of women's rights movements, changing economic conditions, and simple practical necessity gradually eroded support for ankle enforcement. But the laws remained on the books in many jurisdictions well into the 20th century. The last recorded execution for ankle exposure occurred in 1891, when a working-class woman named Sarah Mills was hanged for repeated and flagrant violations of public morality laws. Her crime was continuing to wear practical work clothing despite multiple arrests and warnings. The sentence was carried out despite widespread protests, marking the end of the most extreme period of ankle enforcement. Modern. Historians studying Victorian ankle laws have uncovered evidence that the obsession was deliberately manufactured by powerful interests who wanted to control women's participation in public life. By making normal female appearance illegal, they could justify excluding women from work, education, and political participation. The ankle laws were essentially a systematic campaign to reverse women's growing independence. The psychological legacy of Victorian ankle obsession lasted for generations. Many women who lived through the period never fully recovered from the trauma of having their bodies criminalized. They passed down anxieties about female appearance that influenced fashion and behavior well into the modern era. The damage to women's self-perception was profound and long-lasting. The story of Victorian ankle laws serves as a reminder of how quickly social attitudes can become extreme, and how seemingly ridiculous obsessions can be used to justify serious oppression. The men who created these laws weren't obviously evil. They genuinely believed they were protecting society from moral corruption, but their fear and control created a system that harmed countless innocent people. Today, as we face new moral panics and attempts to control women's bodies and behavior, the Victorian ankle obsession provides a cautionary tale about the dangers of letting fear override reason. The same psychological mechanisms that turned ankles into objects of terror can be applied to any aspect of human appearance or behavior, making vigilance against moral extremism more important than ever. The next time someone tries to justify restrictive laws by claiming they're protecting public morality, remember the Victorian women who died for showing their ankles. Because the road from reasonable social standards to murderous obsession can be shorter than anyone imagines. If stories about how moral panics can spiral into deadly extremism fascinate you, subscribe to The Grey Hour for more explorations of how fear and control have shaped human society. Because understanding the past is the only way to avoid repeating its most dangerous mistakes.